Most every sorcerer had heard the claims that an untamed, bloodthirsty monster was on the prowl. Numerous sorcerers had tried to hunt down the terrible werewolf, but they were outmatched. Each returned from the hunt as a harrowed corpse. I was acquainted with several of the victims. I had decided to make the werewolf my next target, and I should not deceive my reader. It was personal. A sorcerer approached me, asking if he might come on my hunt. His name was Venator. A one-eyed sorcerer. When I arrived at the afflicted area, the great werewolf had already fled.
Why won't it show itself?
As we gazed at the hunks of flesh left in the werewolf's wake, Venator told me of his long history with the Wolfman. Though he had no history at all. The werewolf had the peculiar habit of appearing in places in close proximity to Venator. As a result, Venator had lost many associates to the beast.
Has it something against me?
Could it all be a coincidence? My question was met with a swift answer.
That's what I intend to find out.
And a female sorcerer approached me. There was a reason that this woman, Sorora, had come to me discreetly. She wished to talk to me alone, away from Venator. I did not ask the specifics, but evidently Sorora knew Venator very well. She told me that Venator had been closing in on the werewolf for an entire decade.
Do you not find that odd?
How could a decade pass without a confrontation? There must be an explanation. Her theory was sound, and I was tempted to become a believer. Morning came. We were told that the werewolf appeared nearby the night before. We arrived, but once again the werewolf was gone. Venator sighed. He spoke about his past. How he had lost his eye. his wish to encounter the werewolf. To have his wish granted, he gave his own eye. He had given up a part of his own flesh, but still the werewolf had never revealed itself.
What do you reckon? Huh? Does this werewolf even exist?
Perhaps Venator, too, was nearing the same conclusion as I. Now that she knew everything, Sorora was worried about him. One day, someone would have to tell him the truth. Have you ever caught a glimpse of this werewolf? Even once? Faced with this question, Venator became visibly anxious. He made a confession. Sometimes he would wake up in the morning in an unfamiliar place. It was clear as day. The reason why the werewolf struck in places near Venator, and why Venator had never crossed paths with the werewolf. It was because Venator was the werewolf himself. What Venator had so long detested was but another form of himself. He buried his head in his hands.
Keep an eye on me for a while, will you?
He wanted a witness to observe his moment of transformation. It was the third day of keeping watch over Venator. We heard news that the werewolf had appeared in a different location. I had not taken my eyes off Venator for a moment. We left for the scene, so that Venator could finally face this beast.
Let's get started before I start aching. You pull your own weight here. I've got some.
Someone... Please...
It's just a scratch.
Come on, focus!
We did not find an exhausted man after his rampage as the werewolf. We found something else. It was small and round. Venator let out a scream. It was a human eye. It all came together in one moment. Venator had spent years pursuing this beast known as the werewolf. Not realizing that he was the beast himself. His desperate desire to encounter the werewolf gave birth to a proxy. Created at the cost of one eye. How could he not realize this, despite it being a part of his own body? Perhaps he knew, deep down inside, but chose not to accept that the werewolf was himself. Venator rampaged over the land. Sorora came to me in tears. Please, do not kill my savior. She told me that she had met Venator a decade earlier. Sorora had not been a sorcerer for long when she contracted a rare idiopathic disease after an encounter with a monster. She became covered in the fur of a wild beast. Then she met Venator. It was Venator who cured her of this awful disease. Only the disease was not in fact cured. The parasite that caused it had only changed hosts. Now it grew in Venator. If the werewolf is not put to rest here and now, he may strike again.
Wait!
Sorora''s breathing had become unsteady.
No! Don't kill him!
As she explained, her eyes shone with resolution.
Please! I'll be how I once was!
Sorora embraced Venator. Finally, Venator spoke. Several days passed.
Thank you for everything.
I met Venator. His wounds had healed. It was an incredible recovery. But when I asked about Sorora, gray clouds seemed to form.
I was friends with her brother.
Sorora's older brother was also a sorcerer. Venator and her brother had hunted together from a young age. They faced a monster together, but Sorora's brother died, and Venator survived. The brother had wanted nothing more than his sister Sorora to be safe.
I will look after her instead of him.
Now his only wish was to cure her strange disease. His expression eased.
Well, I suppose I can stop chasing myself now.
The hulking sorcerer Venator is still out there somewhere, freed from his own delusions. Free to care for a special girl. It started with a routine monster hunt. It was commissioned by King Rexus, famous for his hatred of sorcerers. The oppression of sorcerers was common practice in the domain of this ruthless king. But King Rexus was not alone in his mistrust of sorcerers. Sorcerers are keepers of the peace, but they deal in murder. The king's disgust was no secret. Despite this, he requested my assistance, which suggested that he faced a great challenge.
This is the end. Don't worry. Working well. This monster won't go quiet. Come on. This monster won't go quietly, eh? This is the end. Don't be so reckless. It's nothing, don't worry. One more blow!
No. I don't want to die.
This is the end.
No. I don't want to die.
It's down on his last legs. To spare a monster's life.
I defeated the monster, and a man approached me. His name was Militar, trusted knight of King Rexus.
I was preoccupied, and so, my lord, enlisted your help.
Quelling the monster was on a long list of tasks assigned to Militar. I had heard much about this man. He was the only sorcerer to ever get close to King Rexus. Amongst sorcerers, he is called the King's Little Apprentice, or worse, the lapdog of the elite.
Won't you join my forces?
It was an unexpected gesture of confidence. But I questioned his motives. King Rexus always hated sorcerers, but he was also keenly aware of their great strength. Militar exploited this, and by demonstrating unwavering devotion, had become a rare and invaluable possession of the king. He faced suspicion in the kingdom. Once a sorcerer, always a sorcerer. People within the court would always view Militar with disdain. And here he was, asking me to join him. I'd slain the monster. He had recognized my potential. Militar asked me to do a job. He said during the task, his true nature would be revealed. The job was the delivery of a secret message to a hideout deep within the mountains. I arrived at the hideout and was greeted by a female sorcerer. The place was filled with sorcerers. These sorcerers all served Militar. He had amassed allies, and they waited for the moment to pounce. Waiting for the day they would rise up and drag King Rexus down. Countless sorcerers had lost their lives under King Rexus's rule. Militar knew this all too well. As a boy, his parents were executed for crimes they did not commit. Vowing revenge, he infiltrated the court of the enemy, planning a revolution from the inside. The secret message read, "The time is not yet ripe." Orders from Militar.
How long must we wait?
The woman swiftly crumpled the message in her hand. By delivering the message, I had been let in on Militar's secret. He asked me to become friends, but he also needed an ally to help carry out revenge. Then, one day, he confided in me. He said that he had received a letter directly from the Queen. Queen Regia had been blessed with a pregnancy. Militar was clearly distressed. He told me he'd fallen in love with the Queen, his enemy's wife. At first, it was part of the plan. But he explained that what started as deception blossomed into true love. Regia's letter proposed that they leave everything behind and flee together to a faraway land. Militar, torn inside, set out for their rendezvous. En route, he faced terrible monsters. Regia had slipped out of her residence and had arrived safely. Militar and Regia embraced. And he told her everything that he had kept from her. That he had approached her only as part of a larger plan. Regia was heartbroken and melted in distress. But Militar took her in both arms and held her tightly.
It started as a lie. But this lie became truth. I have devoted myself to vengeance, but now I devote myself to you and the child you bear.
Regia stood sobbing. She cried not out of sadness or grief. They knew that they would cast all aside and live for each other. I was asked by Militar to escort them to the border. Militar marched along the rough trail with Regia on his back. At this moment, they both had faith in their future, faith in the joys to come. Unaware that all of their dreams would be shattered. Their conversation came to a sudden end, and Militar froze. Blood ran down Regia's face. The light faded from her eyes. An arrow of ice had sunk deep within her forehead.
Where are you off to, dear Militar?
The female sorcerer we had met at the hideout peered down upon us. Militar had turned on his peers to elope with a queen. As the female sorcerer saw it. Declaring him a traitor, she fell on him with her band of sorcerers.
Dear Militar, to think I had faith in you! Treacherous cur! What of the promises you made? Did they mean nothing? You said you would bring changes to this land. You waited so long. For your signal to rise up. Why? With a woman and a queen, no less. How could you abandon us? Militar. Oh, Militar. Why did you choose me?
Don't tell me you tire already.
Militar, in quiet despair, embraced the corpse of his beloved queen. Sobbing for 3 days and nights, until at last he took to his feet. Militar embraced his lover's body and waded into the lake. He released her hand, and she sank into the water's depths. He spoke little and left. Sometime later, I happened upon Militar. He was a traitor, on the run from the king's men. Tinged forever with self-doubt. The moment he and Regia had vowed to live together. However brief it was profoundly fulfilling. Unlike any emotion ever felt in his quest for revenge. The pain of losing Regia was a difficult thing to overcome. He wished to curse his fate and curse the world. Yet if he did, he felt that he might seal his own fate. That he would stoop to the level of a monster. He had lost Regia, but he did not wish to lose the purity of his love for her. Why let good memories be tarnished by hateful thoughts? And so he believes that there will be a day when he can accept his cruel fate. That he may lose everything, but he would not lose himself. A man stood, gazing at the water. I asked what he was doing. He replied he was watching his own face reflected in the lake.
It's bewitching, my face.
I tried to stop, but failed. I called him a vainglorious cad. The words struck him like a blow. He fell to his knees. His face was a mask of anguish, as if the world were ending.
Impossible. I'm ravishing.
I felt as though I'd encountered something otherworldly. I distanced myself from him. But he followed me, anger in his eyes. He haunted me like a ghost.
Gaze upon my beauty.
The monsters I fought, he would save. He was part of Sanctuarium, I learned.
I cannot deny my anger at your insult, sir, but...
But to take revenge would fly in the face of Sanctuarium's creed. Despite his words, he still looked pale, as if I'd wounded him.
Well, what man hasn't once erred?
He said. What truly mattered, he claimed, was how we are redeemed.
In my infinite beauty, I feel I must offer you a chance to atone.
Nothing the man said made an ounce of sense to me. This man, Calixto he called himself, said he was joining me. That he would make me see his beauty, whatever it took. That he could bear to do no less. It reinforced my opinion. The words vainglorious cad again fell from my lips, and again he collapsed with a shriek. As promised, though, Calixto followed wherever I went.
Do you now see my beauty, sir?
Utterly exhausted by him, I gave him the answer he wanted. He insisted I hadn't.
Said it from the heart.
Yes, well, there's good reason for that. He told me he served as a recruiter for Sanctuarium. And he only dealt with a very specific subset of people. I had no interest in his work. But that didn't stop him prattling on about it. A fiend appeared before us. The twinkle suddenly returned to his eye. He was brimming with energy now. It was as if we had beheld a vision come from heaven.
Allow me to redefine grace in motion for you. Gaze upon my beauty.
true to his organization's code, he saved the monster. But that was only the beginning of his work, he explained. No one can say whether those who are saved find true salvation afterwards. Those who drowned in their desires once often sink into them again. And society does not look kindly on those who have become monsters. Many of the saved endure prejudice and abuse. Only a lucky handful can return to their former lives. The woman Calixto saved seemed truly repentant. She said her name was Pulcha. In response, Calixto pressed the former monster to join the ranks of Sanctuarium. The organization serves as a haven for reformed fiends with nowhere else to turn. His calling was to go forth and extend the hand of salvation directly. What matters is how we atone. All humans err. We transgress.
As when you insulted me, sir.
He added unnecessarily.
I'm ravishing, am I not?
He put the question to Pulcha, the poor woman he'd only just met. She nodded politely, though it was clear she was merely humoring the one who had saved her. His next task was to escort the girl to Sanctuarium's hold. He asked me to assist him in this.
Do this, and I'll forgive your slander, sir.
Calixto then began to tell the girl an account of his own past. He had been a common sorcerer, a faithful adherent to Avalon's code. But an encounter with one monster changed his life. The beast had been a young woman once.
Help me.
Finishing off a pleading target. Just another part of the necessary evil we sorcerers trade in. But that day, he couldn't do it. He saved that woman, Alba she was called. Though he couldn't offer a reason. Well, who amongst us can say why they've fallen in love?
Funny, isn't it?
He said after finishing his tale.
A man as ravishing as I, falling in love at first sight, and with a former monster, no less.
Pulcha listened intently, so he continued speaking. Ever since falling for that girl, he was filled with empathy for former monsters. Which was when he first began to gaze at his face, out of habit. Calixto and this woman, Alba, fell deeply in love. But her past drew the scorn of those around them. So they moved away from prying eyes to live alone together. To her, Calixto was special, unique among men. Who could ever say they loved someone as much as she loved him? Alba came to him with a confession. Her father, too, had become a monster in the past. And the children of monsters, they too were shunned. In the end, her spirit buckled. And so she became a monster. But even her past did not dissuade Calixto from his affections. Her parents' crimes made no difference to him. He loved her.
Enough talk. For now.
He said wearily. Pulcha seemed eager to hear more, but agreed to leave the rest for the following day. The new day came. But Pulcha had vanished. And thus our search began. Calixto explained this was common among former monsters.
I expect it's the fear of never being truly human again.
The girl he'd loved, Alba, was no exception. Their life together did not last for long. A creeping change took root in her mind. She was perpetually afraid. Her father had been a monster, as had she herself. Wasn't it fair to assume the cycle would continue? Doubts became fears, became obsessions. Humans who become monsters are doomed to the same mistakes. It was a common belief, but none held it more true than she.
She loved me with all her heart, and more.
Ironically, it was that love that tortured her. If she became a monster again, he would be disgusted with her. This kind man, her first love. He was the one person whose hatred she couldn't possibly bear. Before me now stood this narcissist, biting hard upon his lip as if to punish himself.
Gaze upon my beauty.
He shared the end of his story with me. Alba began to eat less and less. She withered away. No salve or spell can cure what ails the heart. Now sickly and frail, she asked a final favor of him. Before she became a monster, before he had cause to hate her, she wished to be his sacrifice. Let her live on in his right arm as a beautiful memory. Calixto just couldn't bear to watch his love's heart crumble. He did as she asked. Alba's love for him was true, deep as any love could be. Her soul affirmed that, housed now within his flesh. The woman who loved him was now a part of his own body. They were truly inseparable. And so he came to feel at times a tremendous love for himself. As a kind of proof that the woman who loved him so was still with him. When we found Pulcha, she was alone and shivering.
But if I was to falter again...
She cried. Calixto wrapped an arm around her trembling shoulders.
Even if you became a monster again, you would have an ally in me. I'd save you every time.
I wonder if it wasn't Alba he wished to speak those words to. If he regretted the sacrifice of the woman he loved, well... It's in how we atone for our sins that truly matters. But perhaps his words were more for his own benefit. Calixto, cursed to love himself, lives on, so he may help others.